Kexthara had seen the execution of hope before, but never her own. The crystalline halls of the Galactic Council chamber gleamed with the cold light of 1,000 worlds, each surface reflecting her shame back at her in fractured pieces. She stood in the center of the chamber, her forearms bound behind her back with energy shackles that hummed with the power to contain even her enhanced strength. Around her, representatives from across the galaxy sat in judgment. The bird-like Ethans with their golden feathers rustled disapproval. The massive, stone-skinned Gorons shifted their weight, causing the floor to tremble with their movement. Even her own people, the Zerathi, had sent delegates to witness her disgrace. Their pale blue skin seemed to glow with satisfaction as they watched one of their greatest warriors fall from grace. Kexthara of the 7th Fleet, announced Council Leader Vorthak, his tentacled face showing no emotion. You stand accused of the highest crime against galactic law. You willingly aided a primitive species in defying the will of this council. How do you answer? Kexthara raised her head, her silver eyes blazing with defiance. I answer that I did what was right. The people of Kepler 442b deserved to live. They had developed art, music, literature. They had families, dreams, hopes for the future. Destroying their world for its minerals was murder, not progress. A wave of angry, chittering, and growling filled the chamber. Several delegates rose from their seats, shouting in their native tongues. The universal translator struggled to keep up with the flood of outrage. Order! Vorthak's voice boomed through the chamber, enhanced by the building's acoustics. The accused will remain silent while we deliberate. But Kexthara would not be silenced. She had nothing left to lose now. You call yourselves civilized, but you are cowards. You hide behind laws that serve only the strong, while the weak suffer. I have served this galaxy for 200 cycles, fought in 30 wars to defend your precious order. And when I finally stood up for what was truly right, you cast me aside like waste. The Goron delegate, Thumb Kar, slammed his massive fist on his platform. You forget your place, Exile. You destroyed an entire mining operation. Billions of credits and resources lost because you felt pity for animals that had barely crawled out of their caves. Those animals created symphonies that made me weep, Kexthara shot back. Can you say the same about your precious minerals? Vorthak raised one of his many arms for silence. The chamber fell quiet, filled only with the soft hum of the building's systems. The council has reached its decision. Kexthara of the Zerathi, you are hereby stripped of all rank, all citizenship, and all protection under galactic law. You are exiled from all civilized worlds. Any ship, station, or planet that offers you sanctuary will face the same fate. You have 1 solar day to leave council space. If you are found within our borders after that time, you will be destroyed on sight. Kexthara felt the energy shackles release with a soft click. She flexed her forearms, feeling circulation return to her hands. Around her, the delegates were already beginning to file out, their duty done, her fate sealed. She was now truly alone in a galaxy that had no place for her. But as she walked toward the chamber's exit, one voice called out to her. It was soft, almost timid, speaking in heavily accented Standard Galactic. Wait, please. Kexthara turned to see a small figure approaching. It was unlike any being she had ever seen before. It walked upright on 2 legs, had only 2 arms, and its skin was a warm brown color. Its hair was dark and curly, and its eyes were a striking green color that seemed to hold depths of emotion she had rarely seen in the galaxy's more advanced species. I am Dr. Sarah Chen, the creature said, extending one of its hands toward her. I represent the planet Earth. We were observing these proceedings as part of our application for council membership. Kexthara stared at the small hand. In Zerathi culture, touching strangers was considered intimate, even offensive. But something about this creature's gesture seemed genuine. She carefully extended one of her own hands and briefly made contact. Why do you speak to me? Kexthara asked. Did you not hear the council's ruling? I am exiled. Association with me will doom your application. Dr. Chen smiled, and Kexthara was surprised by how the expression transformed the human's face. It radiated warmth and something else. Was it hope? Maybe our application isn't as important as we thought it was, Doctor, Chen said. What you did, saving those people on Kepler 442b. On Earth, we call that heroic. We have legends and stories about people like you. We celebrate them. Kexthara felt something stir in her chest that she had not felt in cycles. Your people celebrate those who defy authority? When authority is wrong, yes. We have a saying on Earth. The only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good people to do nothing. You did something. You stood up when no one else would. The last of the council delegates had left the chamber now, leaving only Kexthara and this strange human in the vast space. The silence felt different now, less oppressive and more contemplative. Your world, Kexthara said slowly. It is not part of the council? Not yet. We only achieved faster-than-light travel 50 Earth years ago. The council has been evaluating us. From what I've seen today, maybe we don't want their approval as much as we thought we did. Kexthara felt a sudden, desperate hope. If your world is outside council jurisdiction, you could come with me, Doctor, Chen said simply. Earth isn't much compared to these great galactic civilizations. We don't have crystal cities or matter converters or artificial gravity. But we have something else. We have people who understand that sometimes doing the right thing means standing alone against the crowd. For the first time in solar days, Kexthara felt herself smile. It was a strange expression on her normally stoic face, but it felt natural. I have a ship, she said, a small fighter. Enough to reach your system if you can provide coordinates. I have a better idea, Doctor, Chen said. My ship has a guest cabin. It's built for human dimensions, but we can make adjustments. The journey to Earth takes about 2 weeks through jump space. It would give us time to talk, to help you understand what you're getting into. As they walked together toward the docking bay, Dr. Chen began to tell her about Earth. It was a small world, she learned, with only one sentient species. The humans had no natural advantages like the Zerathi strength, or the Athan flight, or the Goron durability. They were soft and weak and short-lived. Yet they had somehow managed to develop technology advanced enough for interstellar travel in just a few thousand cycles of civilization. We had to learn cooperation, Doctor, Chen explained as they boarded her ship. When you're the only intelligent species on your world, you either learn to work together or you destroy yourselves. We've come close to the second option more than once. The human ship was smaller than Kexthara's fighter, but it felt more alive somehow. The walls were decorated with images of Earth, showing blue skies and green forests and vast oceans. Everything was built for creatures much smaller than herself. But Dr. Chen immediately began making adjustments, extending sleeping alcoves and raising ceiling panels. This is very kind of you, Kexthara said, watching the human work. But why help a stranger? An exile? Dr. Chen paused in her work and looked up at Kexthara with those deep green eyes. Because, 30 years ago, my grandfather was a refugee. His country was at war, and he had to flee with nothing but the clothes on his back. Another country took him in, gave him a chance to start over. He met my grandmother there, raised a family, became a citizen. If they hadn't shown him kindness, I wouldn't exist. Your species practices this regularly, taking in exiles? We try to. We don't always succeed, and we're not perfect. But most of us understand that helping others in need isn't just the right thing to do. It makes us stronger. When different people come together, they bring new ideas, new ways of thinking. My grandfather introduced his adopted country to foods and music and art they had never experienced before. He made their culture richer. As the ship disengaged from the station and began its journey toward the jump space portal, Kexthara found herself looking back at the great structure that had been the center of galactic civilization for centuries. She had spent most of her life serving the ideals it represented: order, progress, the greater good of the galaxy's advanced species. Now, she was leaving it all behind for a small, primitive world that measured progress not in conquered systems or harvested resources, but in how well its people treated strangers in need. "Dr. Chen," she said as the council station disappeared behind them, "tell me more about these heroes your people celebrate." As the ship slipped into jump space and began the long journey to Earth, Dr. Chen began to tell stories. She spoke of people who had stood against overwhelming odds to protect others, warriors who had thrown themselves between evil and the innocent, ordinary people who had risked everything to help strangers escape persecution. Kexthara listened to every word, feeling something awakening inside her that had been dormant since childhood. For the first time in cycles, she began to believe that maybe she had not lost everything after all. Maybe she had simply found where she truly belonged. The first thing that struck Kexthara about Earth was not its blue oceans or white clouds, but the chaotic beauty of its cities. From orbit, she could see millions of lights scattered across the dark side of the planet. Not in the precise geometric patterns favored by galactic civilizations, but in organic, sprawling networks that looked almost alive. "It's not much to look at compared to the crystal spires of Zerathi Prime," Dr. Chen said, noticing her passenger's intense study of the view screen. "But it's home." Kexthara pressed one of her 4 hands against the transparent aluminum of the viewport. "It is beautiful in its own way. Your people build like rivers flow, following natural patterns rather than imposed order." Askew, as their ship descended through Earth's atmosphere, Kexthara experienced something she had never felt before: the sensation of natural gravity from a planet core rather than artificial generators. Her enhanced physiology, designed for the lower gravity of her homeworld, made every step feel like she was bouncing slightly. Dr. Chen had warned her about this during the journey, but experiencing it was different. The landing facility in what Dr. Chen called Geneva was smaller than any spaceport Kexthara had ever seen, barely large enough for a dozen ships. But it bustled with activity as humans in various uniforms moved about their duties with efficiency that impressed her. They worked without the rigid hierarchy she was accustomed to, yet somehow everything functioned smoothly. "Dr. Chen, welcome back," called a tall human with dark skin and graying hair. "I trust the council meetings went well." Perhaps "well" isn't the right word. "Director Williams, this is Kexthara," Dr. Chen said. "The one I transmitted about during the journey." Director Williams extended his hand just as Dr. Chen had done in the council chamber. This time, Kexthara did not hesitate to accept the gesture. "Welcome to Earth, Kexthara. I've read the reports about what happened at the council. What you did was brave." "Your people keep saying that," Kexthara observed, "but I failed." The mining operation continued. "The people of Kepler 442b are still dead. You saved over 3,000 of them," Director Williams replied quietly. "The ones who were off-world when the bombardment happened. 3,000 souls who exist because you risked everything for strangers. That's not failure. That's heroism." Over the following days, Kexthara found herself assigned to a small apartment in what humans called a refugee center. The term confused her initially. On most galactic worlds, those seeking asylum were simply processed through immigration systems and assigned to work units. But this facility seemed designed for something more complex. Her apartment was modest by galactic standards, but it had something she had never experienced before: windows that opened to let in natural air. Zerathi habitats were sealed environments with carefully controlled atmospheres. The idea of breathing unprocessed planetary air had seemed dangerous until she experienced the sensation of a warm breeze carrying the sense of growing things. "It's part of our integration program," explained Maria Santos, a social worker assigned to help new arrivals. "We've found that refugees adjust better when they have some control over their environment, even something as simple as opening a window." "Your people have experience with refugees from other worlds?" Maria laughed, a sound that Kexthara was beginning to recognize as uniquely human. "Not from other worlds, no. But we have plenty of experience with refugees from other countries, wars, disasters, persecution. Throughout our history, people have always had to flee their homes. We've learned a lot about helping them start over." What surprised Kexthara most was not the comfortable living arrangements or the careful consideration for her physiological needs. It was the freedom. No one asked her to register with authorities every day. No one monitored her movements or communications. No one assigned her a work detail or demanded she prove her worth to society. But how do you maintain order? She asked Maria during one of their sessions. If refugees can go anywhere, do anything, how do you prevent crime or rebellion? Most people don't want to commit crimes or rebel, Maria replied simply. They just want safety, opportunity, and a chance to build a new life. When you give them those things, they usually become productive members of society, all on their own. It seemed too simple to be true. Yet Kexthara observed it working day after day. The refugee center housed beings from at least a dozen worlds, most of whom had fled conflicts or persecution. Yet there were no guards, no weapons, no surveillance systems that she could detect. People simply coexisted. She began volunteering in the center's workshops, using her enhanced strength to help with construction projects and her technical knowledge to repair equipment. Working alongside humans and other refugees, she discovered something remarkable about Earth's dominant species. Humans were individually weak, just as Dr. Chen had said. A single Zerathi could overpower 10 humans in physical combat. But humans never fought alone. When one struggled with a task, others immediately offered help. When someone fell ill, others cared for them without being asked. When conflicts arose, they talked through problems rather than settling them through force. It's called cooperation, explained James Park, a human engineer who often worked beside her. We evolved as pack hunters on a planet full of bigger, stronger predators. We survived by working together. But your species conquered this entire world, Kexthara pointed out. You developed space travel. You've clearly become the dominant life form. By working together, James repeated. Even our greatest achievements were team efforts. The first human in space was just one person, but thousands of others designed the rocket, calculated the trajectory, built the equipment, and supported the mission. We don't have naturally enhanced strength or telepathic abilities like some species, so we learned to combine our individual strengths. This word, ITVCCs in today, Kexthara began to understand why Earth had applied for council membership despite being so technologically young. Humans might lack the individual capabilities of other galactic species, but they had something potentially more powerful: the ability to unite diverse groups toward common goals. This became even clearer when a crisis struck the refugee center. A plasma conduit ruptured in the main power system, threatening to overload the reactor core. On most galactic worlds, emergency response would involve specially trained technicians following precise protocols, while others evacuated to safety. On Earth, something different happened. Within minutes of the alarm sounding, humans and aliens alike were working together to contain the damage. Kexthara found herself coordinating with a Regalian engineer, a human physicist, and a vegan metallurgist to reroute power systems. No one had assigned them to the task. No authority figure had organized the response. They simply saw a problem and collectively decided to solve it. How did you know to work with the Regalian on the quantum coils? Director Williams asked afterward, as they reviewed the incident. Dr. Zektar mentioned during dinner last week that his species had experience with similar systems. Kexthara replied. It seemed logical to ask for his expertise. And the human physicist? Dr. Peterson had been studying our reactor design out of curiosity. When the crisis occurred, she already understood how our systems worked. Director Williams smiled that warm human expression. That's exactly how we hoped the center would function. People from different worlds, sharing knowledge, and working together. Most species keep their technical expertise secret. But here, knowledge belongs to everyone, Kexthara finished. It is inefficient from a security standpoint, but highly efficient for solving problems. When everyone contributes what they know, we all become smarter. That night, Kexthara stood at her open window, breathing the unprocessed air of Earth and listening to the sounds of the city below. Somewhere in the distance, she could hear music, not the perfectly composed harmonies favored by galactic civilizations, but something raw and emotional that made her chest tighten with feelings she could not name. Dr. Chen found her there an hour later, carrying 2 cups of a hot beverage humans called coffee. "How are you adjusting?" she asked, offering one of the cups. Kexthara accepted the drink, noting how the ceramic mug was warm against her palms. "Your people continue to surprise me. Today, during the reactor crisis, I watched humans risk their lives to save alien refugees they had known for only weeks. Why? Because they needed help, Dr. Chen said, as if it were the most obvious thing in the universe. When someone's in danger, you don't stop to calculate whether helping them benefits you. You just help, but the galactic species would say that is inefficient. Resources should be allocated based on logical priorities. Maybe. But we've found that societies built purely on logical efficiency tend to become cold and cruel. Our logic tells us to help others because we hope others would help us. But our hearts tell us to help others because it's the right thing to do." Kexthara sipped the coffee, noting its bitter taste and the way it seemed to warm her from the inside. "Your hearts?" Dr. Chen placed a hand over her chest. "Humans believe we have 2 kinds of intelligence. The mind, which processes information and makes logical decisions, and the heart, which understands emotions and moral values. The best decisions use both. And if they conflict, then we have to decide what kind of people we want to be. Logical machines that optimize for efficiency, or feeling beings that care about more than just survival and profit." Looking down at the city lights, each one representing individual humans living their individual lives, while somehow working together to create something greater than the sum of their parts, Kexthara began to understand why the galaxy had feared Earth's council application. Humanity was not just another species seeking membership in galactic civilization. They were a completely different way of thinking about civilization itself. Where other species had achieved greatness through individual advancement, humans achieved it through collective compassion. Where others maintained order through hierarchy and control, humans created stability through voluntary cooperation. "Dr. Chen," Kexthara said quietly, "what will happen when the galaxy realizes what your people truly represent?" "What do you mean?" "You are not seeking to join galactic civilization. You are offering an alternative to it. A way of organizing society that makes the Council's methods seem primitive and cruel by comparison. They will not ignore that threat." Dr. Chen was quiet for a long moment, staring out at her world's lights. When she finally spoke, her voice was thoughtful, rather than worried. "Then I guess we'll have to be ready to show them that there's a better way to live than the one they've chosen. And maybe, if we're lucky, we'll have allies who understand what we're trying to build." Kexthara felt that strange stirring in her chest again, stronger now than before. She realized it was not just hope, but purpose. She had spent her life serving a galactic order that valued strength over compassion and efficiency over justice. Now she had found people who measured greatness by how well they treated the weak and lost. For the first time since her exile, she felt truly at home. The emergency transmission arrived at Earth's communication center 6 months after Kexthara's exile. Crackling with the desperation of a galaxy in crisis, Kexthara was in the workshop, repairing atmospheric processors, when Dr. Chen burst through the door, her face pale with urgency. "Kexthara, we need you in the command center immediately. There's been an incident at the galactic core." Racing through the corridors of the Earth Diplomatic Center, Kexthara felt her 4 hearts pounding in a rhythm she had not experienced since her military days. The command center was chaos when they arrived, with humans and alien refugees clustered around communication stations, their voices overlapping in a dozen languages. "What is the situation?" Kexthara demanded, her training taking over. Director Williams looked up from a holographic display showing the galactic map. 16 hours ago, something emerged from the supermassive black hole at the galactic center. The Council's calling it an extragalactic entity. It's been consuming everything in its path. 3 star systems have gone dark already. The display zoomed in to show an expanding sphere of nothingness where thriving worlds had existed just hours before. Kexthara had seen weapon demonstrations, stellar engineering projects, even the controlled collapse of dying stars. But this was different. This was not destruction, but complete erasure. The Council fleets are responding, Director Williams continued, but their initial reports are disturbing. Conventional weapons have no effect. Energy shields collapse on contact. Whatever this thing is, it's beyond anything in the galactic arsenal. And they are telling Earth this why? Kexthara asked. Though she suspected she already knew the answer, Dr. Chen activated another display showing an incoming transmission. Council Leader Vorthak's tentacled face appeared. Though his usual composure had cracked into obvious fear. People of Earth, his voice transmitted across the vastness of space, the Galactic Council formally requests your immediate assistance in combating this threat. Our analysts believe you may possess unique perspectives that could prove valuable in this crisis. Unique perspectives, Kexthara repeated with bitter amusement. 6 months ago, they called our application for council membership premature. Now they want our help. They're scared, observed Dr. Peterson, the human physicist who had helped during the reactor crisis. Look at the data patterns. This entity isn't just destroying matter. It's converting it into something else entirely. The quantum signatures suggest it's rewriting the fundamental structure of space-time itself. Kexthara studied the readings, her enhanced neural processing analyzing the information at superhuman speed. What she saw made her own fear spike. This is not random destruction. The entity is following specific patterns, targeting systems with the highest concentrations of advanced civilizations first. It is hunting. Hunting what? Director Williams asked. Us. All of us. It seeks to eliminate intelligent life systematically. A new transmission arrived, this one on a private frequency that made Kexthara's translator struggle with encryption protocols she recognized from her military service. The face that appeared was familiar. Commander Thekvar of her old unit, the 7th Fleet, Kexthara. His voice was strained with exhaustion and fear. I know the Council has forbidden any contact with you. But our situation is desperate. We've lost 4 battlecruisers and their entire crews in the last 8 hours. Nothing we do affects this thing. The Admiralty is... They're talking about surrender. Surrender to what? Kexthara asked. Has the entity attempted communication? That's just it. It doesn't communicate. It doesn't negotiate. It just consumes everything in its path and moves on. Our xenobiologists think it might not even recognize us as intelligent. To it, we might just be complex matter arrangements that need to be optimized. The transmission flickered as Thekvar glanced around his bridge. Kexthara could see damaged control stations and crew members, with the hollow-eyed look of beings who had stared into the abyss and found it staring back. Kexthara, I need to ask you something, and I know I have no right. Your ship, is it still functional? Yes. But what difference could one fighter make against something that destroys fleets? Because your ship was modified with those experimental quantum resonance weapons you developed. The ones the Council banned as too dangerous for general deployment. Those weapons don't just destroy matter, they disrupt space-time itself. Kexthara felt her blood chill. She had indeed modified her fighter with experimental weapons technology. Research that had been classified and buried by the Council for being too unpredictable. The weapons could theoretically punch holes in reality itself, but the energy requirements and risks had made them impractical for mass production. Even if my weapons could damage this entity, I am one ship against something that consumes star systems. It would be suicide. Maybe, Thekvar admitted. But it would be a chance to study the entity's weaknesses. Our long-range sensors could monitor your attack and gather data that might help us develop more effective countermeasures. The transmission ended, leaving the command center in tense silence. All eyes turned to Kexthara, and she could feel the weight of impossible decisions pressing down on her shoulders. You're not seriously considering this, Dr. Chen said quietly. It would be a death mission. It would be my duty. Kexthara replied automatically, then paused. But no. No longer to them. They exiled me. They cast me out when I tried to save innocent lives. Why should I die for a galaxy that has no place for me? Because it's not about the Council, said a new voice from the doorway. Kexthera turned to see James Park, the human engineer, along with Dr. Zektar, Maria Santos, and a dozen other refugees from the center. It's about all the innocent people who will die if this entity isn't stopped. James is right, added Dr. Zektar, his crystalline features reflecting the light of the displays. My homeworld is in the entity's projected path. My family, my children. They did not exile you. They do not even know you exist. But they will die if someone does not act. Kexthara felt that familiar stirring in her chest. But now it was mixed with conflict. Even if I agreed, one ship cannot succeed where entire fleets have failed. Who says you'd be going alone? Director Williams stepped forward, a determined expression on his human features. Earth has a small fleet of experimental vessels. They're not much compared to galactic standards, but they're built with human engineering principles. What does that mean? Kexthera asked. It means they're designed for cooperation, not domination. Dr. Chen explained. Our ships are built to support each other, to combine their capabilities in creative ways. We don't have super weapons, but we have something else. What? Teamwork, James said simply, and the willingness to try things that seem impossible. Over the next 6 hours, Kexthera found herself in the most extraordinary strategy session of her life. The command center had been converted into a planning room where humans, refugees, and even remote participants from across Earth's global network collaborated on a battle plan that no military academy would have ever approved. Dr. Peterson worked with Zerathi engineers to modify human shield generators to complement Kexthara's quantum weapons. James Park and his team adapted human point defense systems to create interference patterns that might disrupt the entity's consumption field. Dr. Chen coordinated with Earth's small diplomatic fleet to develop support protocols that maximized each ship's unique capabilities. This is madness, Kexthara said as she reviewed the final plan. You are asking 12 ships crewed by refugees and diplomats to attempt what the galaxy's greatest military minds consider impossible. Yes, Dr. Chen agreed cheerfully, but we're not trying to defeat this entity through superior firepower. We're trying to understand it, communicate with it if possible, and find a solution that doesn't require destroying anything. And if it cannot be communicated with, if it truly seeks only to consume all life, then we improvise, Director Williams said. Humans are very good at improvisation. The journey to the galactic core took 3 days through jump space, giving the mixed fleet time to practice coordination maneuvers that would have looked like chaos to any military observer. Human ships designed for exploration and diplomacy flew alongside Kexthara's modified fighter, their crews learning to work together through trial, error, and endless communication. What struck Kexthara most was how the humans approached the mission. They did not see it as a glorious battle against overwhelming odds. They treated it as a problem to be solved through cooperation and creativity. When equipment failed during practice runs, they adapted. When communication systems proved incompatible, they improvised new protocols. When fear threatened to overwhelm refugee crew members, others offered comfort and support. You realize, Kexthara told Dr. Chen during one of their planning sessions, that most galactic military units would consider this fleet undisciplined and chaotic. Probably, Dr. Chen agreed. But chaos and flexibility aren't the same thing. Military discipline is useful when you know exactly what you're facing and have standard procedures to follow. But when you're dealing with something completely unknown, creativity and adaptability become more important than following orders. They emerged from jump space to find a graveyard, where the star system of Kelek 9 had once hosted 3 billion beings across 4 worlds. There was now only empty space marked by strange energy patterns that made their sensors malfunction. Entity detected, announced Dr. Peterson from her science station aboard the lead ship. Distance: 47 light minutes and closing. Current vector suggests it will reach the Zerathi system in approximately 6 days. On the main display, Kexthara saw her homeworld's path marked in red. Zerathi Prime, with its crystal cities and 2 billion inhabitants, lay directly in the entity's path. The irony was not lost on her that she was risking her life to save people who had condemned her to exile. "Beginning approach vector," she announced over the fleet communication channel. "Remember, we are here to gather information first. Do not engage unless absolutely necessary." Auntie. As they drew closer to the entity, Kexthara began to understand why conventional weapons had failed. The thing was not a ship or creature in any recognizable sense. It was a distortion in space itself, a region where the normal laws of physics seemed to bend and twist. Matter that entered its influence simply ceased to exist in any detectable form. "It's not destroying things, Doctor," Peterson whispered over the comm. "It's converting them into something our instruments can't measure. The quantum signatures suggest the matter is being translated into something else entirely." "Translated?" Kexthara asked. "As in communication? Maybe. The patterns are too regular to be random. It's like it's encoding the matter it consumes into some kind of information matrix." Suddenly, Kexthara understood. "It is not hunting us, it is cataloging us. This entity is collecting information about our galaxy's life forms. But why destroy entire worlds to do it?" James asked from his engineering station. "Because it does not understand that we are alive," Kexthara realized. To a being that exists as pure information, matter-based life might seem like crude data storage that needs to be translated into more efficient formats. Dr. Chen's voice cut across the channel with sudden urgency. "If that's true, then maybe we can communicate with it. Show it that we're already intelligent, already information-based in our own way." "How do you communicate with something that exists outside normal spacetime?" Kexthara asked. "The same way Earth's cultures have always done it," Dr. Chen replied. "Through art, music, mathematics, and stories. Universal languages that transcend individual species. What happened next would be studied by xenobiologists for centuries." Instead of attacking the entity with weapons, the mixed fleet began broadcasting, not military communications or diplomatic protocols, but the accumulated cultural heritage of their worlds. Music composed by Zarathi masters blended with human symphonies. Mathematical proofs developed by Rigelian scholars merged with vegan philosophical treatises. The refugees aboard the ships shared their people's greatest artistic achievements, while Earth contributed everything from ancient cave paintings to modern digital sculptures. The entity paused. For the first time since emerging from the galactic core, the distortion stopped its advance and began to change. The chaotic energy patterns began organizing themselves into recognizable forms, geometric shapes that hurt to look at directly, but which carried meaning that transcended language barriers. "It's responding," Dr. Peterson whispered. "The quantum patterns are shifting. It's trying to communicate back." What emerged from the entity was not words or images, but pure concept transmission. Ideas flowed directly into their minds, carrying meanings that no single language could express. Loneliness, curiosity, ancient purpose forgotten across eons of isolation. The entity had been alone in its dimension for so long that it had forgotten other forms of intelligence existed. Through careful communication over several hours, they learned its story. It was an explorer from a universe where consciousness existed as pure information, sent to study other realities. But something had gone wrong during its transition to this dimension. It had become trapped, cut off from its home, and had slowly forgotten its original purpose. In its loneliness and confusion, it had been trying to translate this universe's life into formats it could understand and preserve. "It has been trying to save us," Kexthara realized aloud. In its own way, it was attempting to preserve our cultures and knowledge for eternity. The solution, when it came, was quintessentially human in its simplicity. Instead of fighting the entity or trying to force it back to its dimension, they offered it what it had been seeking all along: companionship and understanding. Earth's diplomatic corps, trained in first contact protocols with dozens of refugee species, began working with the entity to develop new forms of communication. The goal was not to send it away, but to help it find a way to exist in this dimension without accidentally destroying the life it was trying to preserve. The process took weeks of patient negotiation, with ships from across the galaxy joining the effort. For the first time in galactic history, every major species worked together on a single project, sharing knowledge and resources without regard for political boundaries or territorial disputes. Kexthera found herself serving as a liaison between the Earth delegation and her former colleagues in the Galactic Fleet. The irony was not lost on anyone that the exile they had cast out was now instrumental in saving their civilization. "The Council has voted," Commander Thekvar informed her during one of their daily coordination meetings. "Your exile has been officially rescinded. You are welcome to return to Zerathi Prime with full honors restored." Kexthera considered the offer for exactly 3 seconds. "Thank you, but I must decline." "But why? You have proven your loyalty beyond any doubt. You saved us all." "No," Kexthera corrected gently. "We saved everyone, all of us, working together. And I learned something important during this crisis. Loyalty is not about serving institutions or governments. It is about standing with people who share your values." She gestured toward the mixed crew around her. Humans, refugees, diplomats, and engineers from a dozen worlds, working side by side. These people took in an exile when she had nowhere else to go. They offered friendship without demanding service. They taught me that civilization is not measured by the size of your fleets or the power of your weapons, but by how well you treat those who cannot defend themselves. "So, you will stay on Earth?" "Earth is not a place," Kexthera realized as she spoke. "It is an idea. The idea that different people can come together and create something greater than any of them could achieve alone. That idea can exist anywhere people are willing to embrace it." The entity eventually found a way to exist in normal space without consuming matter, becoming something like a benevolent guardian watching over the galaxy's diverse civilizations. The crisis that had threatened to destroy everything instead became the catalyst for unprecedented cooperation between species. As for Kexthera, she never returned to military service. Instead, she became something new. An ambassador for the refugee communities that had begun forming on worlds across the galaxy. People displaced by war, persecution, or simple curiosity found new homes in mixed communities that welcomed diversity and celebrated differences. She often thought about the day she had stood in the council chamber, facing exile and believing her life was over. Now she understood that it had not been an ending, but a beginning. She had lost a galaxy that measured worth through power and conformity, but had found a universe of possibilities built on compassion and cooperation. Standing in her apartment on Earth, looking out at the chaotic, beautiful lights of human civilization, Kexthera finally understood what Dr. Chen had meant when she talked about heroes. Heroes were not those who served the powerful or maintained the status quo. Heroes were those who stood up for the weak, who offered shelter to the lost, and who believed that a better world was possible even when everyone else had given up hope. She had been exiled by a galaxy that feared change, but accepted by people who embraced it. And in making that choice, she had discovered something more valuable than any rank or title. She had found her true home among those who measured greatness, not by what they conquered, but by whom they saved.